The target grammar for this lecture is time words, hardly and no sooner. English has many time words, and we're going to look at these two. One of them is a phrase, no sooner. The other one is a word, hardly. We actually use them in very similar ways. Let's have a look at the meaning for each one. First of all, look at the meaning for hardly. Have a look at this example. We had hardly started our meal when the restaurant manager came and said that it was closing time. So in this sentence, what does hardly mean? We use hardly to say that one event happened right after the other event. So if you look at the example above, what's the first event? The first event is we started our meal. The second event is the restaurant manager came and said that it was closing time. We use hardly in this way to say that one event happened right after the other event. They were very close in time to one another. That's the meaning of hardly. Now don't confuse this meaning of hardly with the other meaning of hardly in English. There's another meaning of this word, which means not very much. So if I say, we hardly have any milk, this means we don't have much milk. So don't confuse the two meanings of hardly. This meaning that we're focusing on means that one event was very close to the next event. Okay? So that's the meaning we're focusing on. Let's look at the meaning for no sooner. Have a look at this example sentence. The company had no sooner launched when it had to close down due to financial issues. So what does no sooner mean in this sentence? We use no sooner just like hardly to say that one event happened right after the other event. In the example above, what is the first event? The first event is the company launched. So that means the company started. And the second event is that it had to close down because of financial problems. So we use no sooner to say that just after the company started, it had to close down. So the second event happened just after the first event. That's the meaning of these two time words. The meaning of these two words are the same. There is a couple of differences which we'll look at in the following lectures, but the general meaning is the same. We're saying that one event, the second event, happened just after the first event. So the time between the two events was very short. It was very close. Let's look at a few examples to make everything much clearer for you. Here is the first example. The family had no sooner spread the picnic on the soft grass than it started to rain heavily. So look at the example and always think about the events. What's the first event? The first event is the family spread the picnic on the grass. The second event is it started to rain. So always think about the two events that are happening. The first one, they put the picnic out on the grass. And the second event was that it rained. So we used no sooner to say just after we spread the picnic out, it started to rain. So we're saying the two events happened very, very close together. Let's look at the second example sentence. The man was very friendly. We had hardly met before he invited me to his house for dinner. In this example, the person is saying that the man he met was really friendly because the first event was they had met for the first time. The second event was that he invited him to his house for dinner. These two events were very close together. So he's saying he was very, very friendly. Just after we met, he invited me to his house for dinner. So he was very, very kind. Let's look at another example. The golfers had no sooner teed off before they had to go back to the clubhouse because of poor weather. In this example, the golfers had just teed off, which means they had just started their game of golf, when right after it began to rain. Remember, the two events happened very close together, one after the other. So they just started when it began to rain, which means they had to go back to the clubhouse and wait for the rain to stop. So that's the time words, hardly and no sooner. Move on to the next lectures, the structure and the things to note. Then you can start the listening and speaking practice. I'll see you in the next lecture.